Hello, folks. Welcome, High School Football Talk. Trevor Bracco, and we have our sports editor extraordinaire, Dave Fawcett, here. Hope everyone had a lovely and relaxing Thanksgiving weekend and happy holidays and all of that good stuff. We are in prime football season here. Unfortunately, none of our local Prince William squads are still in the mix. Dave, kind of set us up here. What happened in the Woodbridge North Stafford game? What do we have looking ahead here over the next week?
Sure. So Woodbridge and North Stafford met, excuse me, this past Saturday on it was November 29th in the Class 6 Region B final. And this was a game that, these were two teams that had really gone toe to toe over the last two seasons, kind of a game that could have potentially gone either way. But North Stafford uh, pretty much dominated. In kind of all facets. They won 49-33. The final score a little misleading because they were really up 49-19 with maybe a couple minutes left before Woodbridge scored two touchdowns late. But by that point, I think
Yeah.
the outcome was still the outcome. North Stafford, they were Woodbridge committed six turnovers. There were two fumble returns that were returned for touchdowns. There may have been, there was some question mark about that, but still, North Stafford just really did an excellent job on every facet to come away. So it's one of those things where they're a very good team, they're a very legitimate team, even though they lost. They're
Mhm.
one of their best players, who's a big time Division One prospect, and as Sullivan got hurt early in the game, but North Stafford still was able to just kind of do what they do. So they'll move on. They'll host West Springfield this coming Saturday at 2 p.m. in the state semifinals. Woodbridge, obviously a disappointing finish. This was a team that was definitely primed. This was a team that was primed for a deep postseason run with everyone they had coming in. So a little disappointing to finish. They were hoping to make their first state semifinal appearance since I think it was 2017. But the good news for them is they've got a lot of good kids coming back, especially at the skill positions. Their top two running backs, their top three receivers. They'll obviously have to find someone to replace Caleb Tucker, who just smashed all of Woodbridge's quarterback records. He finished with 50 touchdown passes, and um,
Yeah,
but they'll,
sensational season from him.
yeah. So, but
Fun
they've got,
following along.
whoever steps in there is going to, have a good group to work with. So there's not going to be a major drop off there. I still see them as being, a playoff contender, even, going into next season. But North Stafford moves on, and and they certainly earned that victory.
Yeah, it's as you kind of hit on it. It's not the conclusion to the season they wanted, but it's no question still a season to be proud of. I
Right.
think. I mean, you're playing football in December. Well, I guess it was the last weekend of November, but you're almost playing football in December. It's a good year.
And
I'll
that's
just
right.
quickly go ahead. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm gonna quickly run through what our semifinal matchups are for everyone. Got no more Prince William squads in the mix, but there are, a number of other Northern Virginia teams still playing football into the final month of the calendar year. Class 6 semis, we have Oscar Smith at James Madison, West Springfield, as you said, West Springfield at North Stafford. Class 5, Indian River, Highland Springs. Uh, Maury at Stonebridge at Loudoun County there. Class 4, we have Jefferson Forest at Varina, Lafayette at Loudoun County High School. Class 3, Magna Vista at Lake Taylor. Liberty Christian heads to Kettle Run, just right over the county line there in Fauquier. Class 2, Glenvar at Union. Strasburg at Pocasson. And Class 1, Rye Cove at Grayson County at Gate High School, and Buffalo Gap at Rappahannock. So those are our state semis. I know we touched on the call earlier this year. I can't believe how long this season runs. Yeah, so we're gonna have the state finals in mid-December. Every year it catches me off guard. I think surely this has to be the final week of the season, and then it just keeps going, going and going. I know the kids don't have a problem with that. They love extending their season as much as they can, so pretty neat. Dave, just kind of step back and open up the lens a little bit. What struck you this year? What were some of your kind of big takeaways from the season that was on a Prince William level?
Sure. So on one level, it wasn't not a lot of surprises as far as kind of the top teams. I'm kind of going back. It was August, right? Yeah, you're thinking back, doing the preseason polls and all that, and really kind of worked. Kind of my top four kind of played out the way I thought. We had Battlefield, Woodbridge, I think Patriot, and Garfield. So, and all four of those teams obviously made the playoffs. So there weren't any real surprises there. I think if there's anything, it was probably just that if you want to take that fifth spot. I've mentioned this before, but I'll just keep saying with Forest Park. I mean, this was a team again that
Yeah.
graduated 22 seniors, including their whole offensive line. They had a lot. They had a new head coach. A lot of, you know, you're thinking, wow, gosh, something like that, you're going to be rebuilding, and they really did a heck of a job. I mean, they made the playoffs after a 1 year absence. They finished 6-5, but honestly, they could have, they won 6 games. They could have won more. They were missing their biggest offensive threat, Kellen Lewis, for a couple games, who was out. Um, obviously had the big win against Centerville, who won or was the top seed in regional seed for their region. So they really, I don't know. I thought they really did it. Should really be proud of what they accomplished this season, given all those circumstances. I think the other one's probably Colgan. Yeah, obviously
Right.
they they had a first winning record in school history, which is a big deal.
Of
The
course.
school's been open since 2016. First varsity season, I think, was 2017 after doing JV their first year. Um, they're probably still a little disappointed. You think 7-3, right? You should have gotten to the playoffs. It's like that should have been, but strength of schedule kind of
Mhm.
hurt them. They started off 4-0, but a couple of those teams, had losing records, and that kind of caught up to them. Then their three losses were to district opponents. I think it was Forest Park, Garfield, and Woodbridge. And so it's a competitive region. There's 8 slots, and obviously wins count, but also wins who against who you
Right.
can
Do
beat
you play?
count. So
Yeah.
it's probably one of those mixed things, but I think that, they certainly, to go 7-3 after, never having a winning record was, a big accomplishment. So, Lauren White, who's first year head coach there, had a lot of success at Brentsville, came to Colgan trying to do the same thing. And so they got off to a good start because they didn't have a lot of, they graduated, lost a lot of kids too. So, what they were able to do, even though they didn't get as far as I think they had hoped to, still, something to be certainly to be proud of.
Yeah, it can almost just be full stop right there. First winning season in school history, and by a lot, 7-3. It's not like they
Correct.
were flirting with 500.
That's right.
So good work to the crew at Colgan. Congratulations on that first winning season. Did you have? Oh, we kind of wanted to wrap up, put a bow on what you term pretty much the craziest, most bizarre situation you've encountered in your decades covering Prince William and Northern Virginia sports.
Yeah. So I'm sorry if I keep sounding like a broken record
Yeah,
with this, but it
yeah.
is,
Set us
almost
up,
40
kind of
years here.
recap the situation.
Yeah. You hear, a lot of this, in this era, there's always going to be question marks about kids, transferring. Are they eligible? And, because they're moving from school
Yeah,
to school and things like that. So that's, kind of been more of the norm. But the whole issue with the at the Forest Park Battlefield first round playoff game with the chain the Battlefield chain gang crew wearing the electronic devices was just, I think was probably, I mean, this may be a stretch, I don't know, maybe extreme, but I think it was pretty unprecedented. I don't think that anyone, again, I think I've said this before, had ever dealt with this. Like, what are we talking? How to, not only that it actually happened, but then what to do with it. So, again, what happened was, I think it was late in the third quarter of that game. They were discovered that the chain gang crew, which usually is on the visitor sideline, had electronic devices, and as the rules clearly state, there's no gray area there. They are not to have anything, even cell phones, nothing, because
right.
for it's to prevent cheating. Basically,
Yeah.
you're not. They don't have anything they could then transmit to the home team and you know do all that. So the fact that it was discovered, they removed them. They were,
And let me cut you off just because I know some
sure.
people ask, okay, electronic devices is such a generic term. Do we know now? We do know now what they were, correct? Um,
I believe they were earpieces. Yeah,
Earpieces, right? Yes.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't
Yeah.
walkie-talkies or something,
Right.
so, very, easy to see. I believe
They
they
weren't
were
sitting there texting on
correct.
the
Yeah, yeah.
phone.
No,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. They were. I believe they were earpieces, and again, that's just a no-no. So, there's a lot, or obviously, a lot of controversy. What was going on. The Prince William County school system, they had their division look into it. Obviously, Forest Park and Battlefield administration's very cooperative. Everyone wanted to get to the bottom of this and
Yeah.
figure out what was going on because, again, it was indisputable that they had them, which is a question of what they were doing with them, why they had them, what they were doing with them. So, in the meantime, these teams have to prepare. Who's in, who's out. Is Forest Park going to make the
Yeah.
play? Is Battlefield going to move on? Where Stafford's going? Who are we playing? Um, but I think it was by that Thursday before the region semifinal, they came out and released their findings, and what they ended up coming up with is that essentially, yes, there was a violation that did occur, that the changing crew did wear these, but they were using them to help communicate with each other, on the sidelines, and that's all it was.
Yeah.
And the
Within the
explanation made it
chain
very
crew.
clear, right, that the electronic systems that the teams use are incompatible with what they were using. There was no way for one to be
Yeah.
use it to communicate to another. So that ended it. Battlefield, then moved on, and then they played North Stafford that next night in the region semifinals. And I'm sure there were people still have questions. Is this really what was going? Conspiracy theorists and things like that. But it made sense that was
Yeah.
going on, but it still raised it just the fact that we were having this discussion. I guess the hopefully the takeaway from all this is that maybe some lessons learned, like,
Yeah.
hey, you don't want to be paranoid about it and
Yeah.
overly
Well, it's pretty easy. Just
concerned, but
don't have them in, or
make
it
sure
could lead
whoever's
to this
supposed to be checking
situation.
that, whether it's the officials, the home team that's selects the home school that selects the guy, do you understand
Yeah.
you're not supposed to do this? Like, even being more vigilant about it maybe than they
Right.
already were, because and just making sure that it just doesn't, so something like this just doesn't happen. And there was nothing nefarious about it, nothing more. It just
Yeah.
that's what they used him for. It was unfortunate and it caused a lot of unnecessary headaches. But
Right.
hopefully,
Certainly
again,
did.
takeaways from this, lessons learned, and just so this just thing is because a lot of people I'm just trying to sort through this to make sense of it. So hopefully, that will just be the end of that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a good point to pull the curtain back. I mean, I think we caught some flack for perhaps trying to insinuate or imply that there was some, as you said, something nefarious going on or some wrongdoing going on. We were just so interested in this because, as you mentioned, it's never happened before. It was such a unique, peculiar story, and you're so well sourced and sourced up enough. You were talking to people who were like, I don't know. This is unprecedented. So it was a fascinating story wherever it ended up, but it was a fascinating story. And like you said, it did cause headaches for the teams, for the coaches, for the schools, and for us. Uh,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
but we got to cover a pretty interesting, unique story for sure. Um, we'll kind of close it out here, and we'll look to the next level. Who are some local athletes that will be heading to the next level in college that we can kind of keep our eyes out for on Saturdays next fall?
sure. So this Wednesday, December 3rd through December 5th, is the early signing period for high school football seniors who want to sign with their respective colleges. And so there's a number of kids who will be doing that. Four from Battlefield. Luke Hatfield's signing with UVA. Callum O'Shea is quarterback, signing with Richmond. Keaton Ramey's going to Stony Brook. And Brandon Murray's going to Rutgers. You also have at Patriot a linebacker by the name of Matthew. I'm going to butcher his name, Matthew Lama, I think. Lama, excuse me if I mispronounce that. Is going to Virginia Tech, and then Jordan Benjamin, who's an offensive lineman at Patriots, going to sign with Towson. And the last one, I believe, is Raphael Johnson, who's a strong safety for Woodbridge. He's going to sign with Howard. Um, I'll just mention this real quick. So
Hmm.
most of these kids had their decisions lined up by the summer or early in the season. Luke Hatfield at Battlefield and Matthew at Patriot had initially committed to other schools. Luke for UConn and Matthew at Penn State, but they ended up making some different, going a different route, decommitting from those schools. I think Matthew was not a huge surprise because once James Franklin was fired from Penn State, that's really a
Yeah,
big reason why he went there. And so, once he got settled and where he was going to go, you kind of figured that's where he was going to, Matthew was going to end up going to play for him
Virginia Tech.
at Virginia Tech. So they'll get those. There'll be some other kids. The normal the regular signing periods the first Wednesday and it starts the first Wednesday in February. So there'll be some other seniors who will then once they get their decisions finalized, will take care of that then. Um, as far as coming up, the I guess the class of 2027, the rising will be the rising seniors. There's a young man by the name of Noah Glover at Battlefield. He's a linebacker there, and he's the big one. He's pretty much got a pick of any school right now he wants to go to. Alabama, Texas A&M, you name it, he's got an offer from them, and so he's actually in Battlefield. Geez, they've had a lot of even just this group coming out this year. Had a lot of Division I players, kids who've done well, but he is by far the most highly recruited player to come out of the high school since the school opened in 2004. So he's going to have a chance. He'll start getting, I'm sure finalizing stuff, getting visits set up and things like that. But he's kind of the main one right now. His dad played football at West Virginia, so he's got some genes there too. But he's super nice kid, good student, just very good team oriented player. But he's got a physical skill set that just that these major powerful conferences, these teams from there are just in love with, and
Yeah.
think he'd be a good addition for
Yeah,
their
I know.
program.
I know that name rings a bell. So that I love that you gave us that one because not only will we get to look forward to him at the next level in a couple years, we can clue in on him next year for his final year at Battlefield, and presumably watch him dominate a fair bit.
Yes, that's right.
Um, but well, that's awesome. Dave. It was
Yeah,
in some ways it feels like it was years ago that we hopped on and started doing these, and in some kind of other measures it feels like you snap your fingers and the season's over. So
that's right. Yeah, it's
kind of
quick.
a microcosm of life, I guess. Thanks so much. Great work as always. I know you're heading deep into the winter sports season now and kind of shifting gears, but we appreciate your coverage. I know our readers appreciate your coverage so much. And on that note, thank you. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Be
Yes.
sure to hit up InsideNoVa.com for sports coverage and for coverage all across the region, schools, business, local government, elections, which thankfully we're finally catching our breath a little bit after election season last month. Again, happy holidays, everyone. Stay safe, stay blessed, and thank you so much. Dave,
Thank
have a
you.
good one. Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Trevor. Thank you all.